Hey, good morning. Glad to see you. Welcome to Fremont and Millard and our Commons campuses. Yesterday, we had our very first high school graduation at our Fremont campus. It was a great time. A lot of graduations this year, just really a lot of fun stuff. And so it's great to be a part of that. Thank you for inviting us. Linda and I enjoy going to see kids leave, actually, so it's kind of nice of you. We are in a message series on To Infinity and Beyond. We're trying our very best to set ourselves up for a marriage that will last a lifetime. And maybe you're single, it's like, well, what does this got to do with me? It's like, well, everything. You should be taking notes. You should be getting ready, preparing, because we do. The likelihood of you getting married is pretty good. And I know you're 12, but it's going to happen. It's going to be fine. And so, but you really, hopefully, wherever decade you're at, we've been taking a look at decades 0 to 10 and 10 to 20, and today is 20 to 30. And some of you are like, wow, those people must be old. Truly, they are. We are. I'm even in the next ones. And by the way, I got a lot to say about the next one. But we have some of this stuff that we're learning this week is just from Linda and I have been married 36 years and 30 some plus years in pastoral ministry and dealing with couples and relationships and premarital and all those kind of things, so we can set ourselves up for a love that will last a lifetime. So in this decade, this is a tough decade. The kids are getting older. Middle school, probably is in the rearview mirror for many of them. High school and graduations and expenses are mounting, and the college and the cost of weddings are all in play. And some of you truly, this would be the decade you are dreading the most. It really is. So a couple of things, just kind of, first of all, I would say in this decade, you need to cultivate romance. Because it's really easy at this point where you're kind of in the 20 to 30 kind of thing is where you're taking each other for granted. And you've got a whole lot of other things pulling at you. And, it's like the stress of kids and college and things that are happening at this point. Romance can take a back seat. Remember when you first kind of started dating and this is completely different than like when you were first dating and now. You would talk to each other for hours on the phone. Like what? Like you could just go, and I remember, it's like you could just talk and you go, oh, I got to go to bed. It's 3:00 in the morning, right? Remember those days? Like, oh, yeah. It's like, and I remember when Mitch went away to college and he let us know that he had met this girl and their first date, they talked for 4 hours. Linda said to me, he's going to marry her because he hadn't even talked to a girl in high school. And we're like, so hope he does this. This would be great. And sure enough, he married Alyssa, and my guess is that I don't know if they've talked for 4 hours since then. It's like really great. Mitch is not a big conversational guy. But you would talk for hours. You'd write little notes. You'd call each other up just for no reason at all and think about each other. And that was truly what it was. Romantic. It was just like, we're thinking about each other. I just want you to know about that. And you would special dinners or creative things you would do. And romance was just part of the equation. But now you're into the 20, right? Marriage kind of thing. And romance it means something different now. It really does. Let's see what it means right now. Let's take a look.
It's about to get real, baby. I know what love means to you. The party is through. It's just me and you. Everyone has left our home. Girl, we're finally alone. Wave goodbye to the guests. You know what's next. I understand. We'll light your fire. We've been married 20 years. I know what you want, my dear. I'll go get the vacuum and take it from here. I'll clean up for you like you want me to. You see, turn off all the lights and I'll be alright. Lock the doors for you, sweep the floor for you, and I'll put down the kids so you don't have to. Oh, baby, slip into what you want. Put your baggy sweatpants on, your favorite ones with a Nutella stain down the front. Go watch some Apple TV, Parks and Rec, all Downton Abbey. Yeah, like you want me to. Gonna turn off all the lights and I'll be alright. Lock the doors for you. Check the bathroom too, and I'll put down the seat so you don't fall through. Baby. Hey, thank you, California. You've been amazing. Yeah, remember, I will clean up for you. Yeah.
Romance means different things now, doesn't it? That's Tim Hawkins. He's a Christian comedian. In fact, he will be in Omaha in a week or two, and we're going to post that video online on our Facebook, and if you like it and share it, you'll be entered into a drawing for a couple of tickets that we're going to give away. It'll be a fun evening, and he's just a super, super fun and great communicator. And sometimes we just need to laugh a lot, and it'll be a lot of fun. Now, I say as romance, if we don't cultivate romance, and there's a difference between romance and sex, right? It's like we think it will be like, but probably the most romantic thing I do for Linda now is I clean the floors. On Fridays, on my day, if she's not home, I get up, I sometimes do my stuff, I go do a little photography thing, and I come home, and I clean the floor. I like it, I really do. It's weird, but in my job, it is hard for me to see progress sometimes, right? Because I'm not building anything, I'm not, making stuff. I pray and read the Bible and talk to people who don't want to change, really, and so I don't see any progress. It's like, nothing's happening. But when I clean the floors, I'm like, I did that. Look what I did. I clean the floors. And so I do. I like cleaning, I like vacuuming. It's weird, but it is about the most, because I'm really thinking of Linda at that moment. I'm cleaning. It's like, this is stuff we do. I do other things, but basically, when we're saying, here's what I'm doing, I'm thinking of you now, and I know something like, well, if I clean the floors, then maybe I get sex. No, that's not, it can't be the motivation, really. But I would also say this, too, is that if we don't cultivate the intimacy of our relationship, we do that to the detriment of our marriage. And it will be a slow decline on the intimacy that comes with that. Because, by the way, that is the gift of God to those of us who are married. Here is this gift that he's given to us. And it's a powerful and intimate and wonderful thing that we enjoy together. A couple of things about raising kids during this decade, and some of the again, I'm just telling you, this is some of the stuff Linda and I did when we were raising our kids. You may not agree, you may not like it, you may think it's dumb, but that's okay. You do what you do, but this is just some stuff from us. You probably have played, I don't know, maybe you don't, King of the Mountain. When I was a kid, we played King of the Mountain, which is very hard to do in Nebraska. Right, it's like, where's a high point? We don't really know. So basically, the highest point in Nebraska would be some guy's farm where he has hay bales, right? And so you have hay bales, you get up on top of these hay bales, and you throw each other off. That was the game. Now, for some of you, you're thinking, well, that sounds scary. Truly, because we didn't have helmets then. We didn't have bubble wrap. You know, I can just imagine parents today like, well, you can play King of the Mountain, but here's a helmet and some bubble wrap, right? And it's like, why don't you get hurt? But we literally would go out unsupervised into hay bales and throw each other off. And the goal was to be on top of the mountain. And right, and so finally somebody would give up or somebody get hurt and somebody go cry to mom, And so like, knock it off. All right. So that is basically the dynamic that takes place in a family when you have children. Their goal is to get on top of the mountain. And when they get to middle school, high school, college age, the mountain is summited by people who get louder and more intense. And if you think that grade school is intense, wait till you get to middle school and high school, because they just get louder and they have louder friends and they have more influence as well. And it gets to be a tough, tough thing. And so we talked about this last week. I had more people thank me last week about saying this: don't make your children the center of your marriage. And this really, really is true when you come into this decade. Ben Sass, by the way, I love this guy. He's one of our representatives in the state of Nebraska. I think he's brilliant and a strong believer. He's coming out with a new book that is called The Vanishing American Adult. I ordered it. I cannot wait to get my hands on this thing. And it's from his experiences raising kids, but also as the president of a university. And here's some stats that he shared with us already. 30% of college students drop out after the first year. 30%. And probably at a minimum of 20 grand goes out the window on that moment, right? It's 20 grand, easily 20 grand first year. So 30% college students crash and burn in the first year. Now, I don't think that college is for everyone. I certainly don't. That's an expensive and very hard lesson to learn. And for some reason, we set our kids up somehow in this system to fail. There are plenty of reasons why, but it truly is happening in our culture right now. 4 out of 10 college students will actually graduate. 4 out of 10. 60% don't graduate. 1 out of 3 18 to 34-year-olds live with their parents. Now, I'm anxious to see what he has to say about this crisis. I have some theories as well. Part of it is I really truly believe that we're such a wealthy group of people that our kids are so used to so much stuff coming out, we give them all kinds of stuff, and they truly are used to that lifestyle that they don't want to leave it. And they know if they leave that, right, the flow of income slows down, and they like all this stuff that they have. So here's a couple of things that we did for our kids when they were going through this time. We made them get a job. About as soon as they could begin work, they started working. Some of you helped us with that. You hired our children, mostly as a favor to me. Not because they interviewed well. Mitch went to interview at Chipotle. Our friend Tim Hazy was managing Chipotle at the time, and so Justin, I think, worked there, and Tim, so Mitch was wanted to get a job at Chipotle, and so during the interview, they tell him part of the perks of working there is that you get to eat the food, and if you know Mitch, he really enjoys that. But he looked him square in the eye and says, "I don't like Mexican food." So they hired him. Why wouldn't you hire a kid, right? You wouldn't hire, like, if he's going to eat that food, right? So he didn't like it. And the only reason he didn't like Mexican food, he didn't want to try it. As soon as he tried it, it's changed his world. At the time, Chipotle would throw out the meat and stuff at the end of the night because they make all this extra stuff. And so Mitch talked him into letting him keep it. And he would bring bags of food home with him every single night, pounds of chicken and beef and steak and all that. So it was amazing. After a while, I think they said, we need to knock that off. So they don't let you do that anymore. It's called the Mitch Chitwood Law, I believe. But we did eat very well for that period of time. But I do believe that kids need to learn very early on the value of hard work and money. Proverbs 12:11, a hard worker has plenty of food, but a person who chases fantasies has no sense. You could also spell that C-E-N-T-S. Proverbs 14:23, work brings profit, but merely talk leads to poverty. Proverbs 21:25, despite their desires, the lazy will come to ruin, for their hands refuse to do work. Kids seem to think that money comes from two places, parents and the government. They're going to take care of me. They're going to take care of me. And I understand that the number one job for a kid is to go to school. But they do not learn the value of money at school. I don't think that kids should work a lot, but I do think that they certainly could during the summertime when they don't have anything else to do. Proverbs 10 verse 4 says, lazy people are soon poor. Hard workers get rich. Now, our kids had it pretty rough. I know that we made them get a job and buy their own car. They had to buy their own car. They had to save up their money to buy their own car to do that. So we would take them to work, or they had to walk or ride their bikes, but they had to do that. And so we would at times loan them a little bit of their money. They had to have a certain percentage before they could buy their car. And again, they didn't buy really expensive cars. They didn't buy very fancy cars. They didn't even buy cars that ran. But we would help them that, and we set them up on a system of you had to pay us every month for this. We didn't charge them interest, much to my chagrin, but I was willing to do that, but Linda is nicer. They had to pay insurance and for repairs on their cars. And bless Mark Robinson's heart. If you know Mark Robinson, he's a mechanic and he comes to church here, and he would take care of our family, again, because their cars weren't great cars. And so they spent a lot of time at Mark Robinson's shop. And Mark would basically charge them for parts, and if they helped them out at all, bringing him tools and stuff and hanging out there, he wouldn't charge them stuff at all. And so he kept our family running, and the boys in that. So I'm super grateful for Mark for doing that. But those were great lessons. It was all to the point as well, like, I got to help these kids leave because they're going to leave. We don't want them to stay. They're going to go. And that was the goal. Another step we took for them was schooling, and we didn't really care much about where they went to school or what they wanted to study, but we did have a budget, and we saved money so that we could help them with their education. But we made it really super clear that if you blow off your education, like you don't go to class and you don't pass, you just bought yourself a class. I was not paying for Fs, and because I really truly believe that God wouldn't pay for Fs. And since this is God's money, if you want to blow off and not go to class and not study and do those things, you're welcome to. And a whole bunch of credit hour kind of things. Those are expensive lessons, but that was a little bit of an incentive. Also, we made the decision that when Mitch decided he wanted to get married during his college years, we just said, well, welcome to the big boy world, and the scholarship is no longer available, thinking that would slow things down. But then they did research and found out that the government was more than willing to give them a whole bunch of money for being so poor. Thank you very much. Where does money come from? All right. That's a different topic for a discussion with certain leaders of our world. We also made work and earning and that kind of stuff, that they had to learn to budget things and, balance stuff. And that was a big deal. Now, I don't know if they pay much attention to it anymore, but we wanted them to, balance a checkbook. And kids don't balance checkbooks anymore. Kids don't even have checkbooks anymore. And so they have a debit card that doesn't balance anything. It just tells them yay or nay, right? It's like, yes, I got money. No, I don't. That kind of stuff. And so I think that in our world today, if you don't learn how to, how much money you got coming in, how much you're going out, that can be a very difficult thing. So we made them have budgets and that kind of thing. A couple of things we did was we made youth group a priority. They really had no say in it, but they really didn't ever push back. It was amazing. I really liked the fact that our student ministries here were so good and creative and interesting that our kids really liked going to church. And so we never had to fight the battles, and still to this day, I am super thankful for the great youth ministry and youth coaches that were involved in my children's life. And still to this day, there are certain people that had massive influences in my children's life that I would probably do about anything for them if they just asked. If they had a need, or if they needed me, I would go, because they cared for my kids during the massively formative years when they could have taken massive steps sideways. But these people cared deeply for them. Now, Linda and I made the decision really early on that we would do our very best to be authentic Christ followers in our homes. And it's pretty easy for me to come up and say some stuff and act all Christian in front of you and then go home and be a real, right? And my kids would listen to me and then they would go, I don't think that's, the dude I see on Sundays and the dude I see on Mondays is way different. And that's where a lot of kids get super sick of Christianity, is they see and hear and put out a Christian kind of vibe, but there's really very little authentic Christ-following, faith-filled kind of stuff. And so we did our very best. Again, they'll get in line and tell you how many mistakes I made as a parent and a husband and that kind of stuff. But I really tried to do my very best to make faith determine the decisions that we made, because I really wanted them to love Jesus more than anything else, that I wanted them to decide for themselves, that when they left their home, that they, at least I did my part to give them as much of a dose of Jesus as I could through my life and through our marriage. I wanted them to understand financial stuff. I wanted them to understand love of Jesus. And really, you probably should sit down with each other. I want you to get on the same page with each other as a husband and wife and say, what are the goals for our children? We're coming into that middle school and high school region where what are we going to do to set them up for success? I want them to be believers in Christ. I want them to understand some financial stuff and, dating things, all kinds of stuff that you can come through. And Linda and I had, we certainly spoke into our children's lives on those kind of issues. And Mitch and Justin both married really wonderful people. And we're super thankful for that. Now, a couple of things I would just say about marriage during this time is, let me see how to say this. Be a couple before the kids leave. And we talked a little bit about this already, but this is crucial. What I've observed over the years in this decade, and this is where it gets really scary, is that if you aren't a couple before the kids leave, you will be bored when they're gone, and you won't like each other really anymore. You didn't set out to do that, but typically what happens is that you have interests going on here where, maybe the husband's career's going crazy and soaring and you're doing really well, and it's often this tangent. Maybe mom's is the same thing, because this is the decades where your earning potential is awesome and you're really going at it, and your worlds are getting different, and then you're overcompensating because of that, and you're pouring into the children and that kind of stuff, and you've neglected your marriage. So that when they leave, the scariest thing that you think is the empty nest syndrome, right? It's a syndrome. And this is where oftentimes where it really gets crucial. So I would say, please, please, please continue to work super hard at your relationship with each other. Because oftentimes intimacy is gone, the fun has been sucked out of life, and the kids are gone, and there's very little left to hold on to. So, cultivate romance in your marriage. Begin to figure out what that means, because again, we all have different languages that, love languages that mean a great deal to us, and sometimes, but you need to figure this out. That here's what romance means, right, to Mark or to Linda or whatever you was like. Well, this is what it means to me. And I truly know that if we ignore those romantic things in our lives, or we're not cultivating it as a couple, then eventually, that when the kids leave, and they will, eventually, we've drifted so far apart, we don't know what to do anymore. And it takes a tremendous, in fact, oftentimes when I have counseling with people, it's in this season of life, and I try to help them remember what it was like when they first got in a relationship. And it's probably at that point too far gone. So take the preventative medicine right now and begin to work on that relationship. Let's figure out what this means. I would tell you that it's important to take vacations as a couple together without your kids. That was probably one of the biggest breakthroughs that Linda and I had, is that we suggested some vacations and our kids said, well, that sounds dumb. And we said, fine with us. And you can stay home and we'll find somebody to stay with you. And like, yeah, let's go. And we went and we had a great time. And we didn't even think about them. We didn't. It was awesome. We came back. We didn't even feel guilty. And they're like, do we get to go next year? I don't think so. It truly, really, truly was a great thing for our marriage as we began to reconnect in great ways as a couple. And I do think that you need a period, again, I know financially, but I would say you need a minimum of 3 days, 3 nights, minimum. Because the first one, what do you want to do? I don't know. It's up to you. I don't know. And so there's just awkwardness and all that kind of stuff. But please, 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 spend some time together, cultivate that relationship, because again, when they leave and it's just you guys together, you're like, oh, what do you want to do? I don't know. You're going to need something here besides the kids to hold you together. All right. Let's pray. God, I thank you so much for, thank you very much for Linda. Thank you for, it's just way too much. Grateful for her kindness and patience and goodness and gentleness and faithfulness. I'm thankful that she is a woman of faith and of courage. I thank you today also for my mom and dad and their examples of that we celebrate this spring, 60 years of marriage. And I know that it's not always been great, but I do know that they have persevered and now enjoy an incredible relationship with each other that I really, truly appreciate and aspire to be like. Thank you so much for loving us, for being, being everything that we need you to be in relationship with us, that you fell in love with us first, and now still to this day love us more than we could even imagine. We're grateful. In Christ we pray.